Silent forces shift tonight. A subtle tremor moves across the inner world, calling only those who feel life through a deeper pulse. Chosen ones sense this long before signs appear in the physical realm. A rare alignment rises on November 19th, 2025. A convergence where divine intention meets disciplined spirit. Many speak about miracles as events that drop from the sky, but true miracles unfold inside the one who trains the mind, steadies the breath, and walks with unwavering clarity. In this moment, an ancient current circles through the collective spirit. Years of practice, struggle, and quiet growth bring you to this point. The 7 final miracles linked to this night are not random blessings. Each one reflects inner mastery. Courage sharpened through trials, clarity shaped through silence, purpose strengthened through sacred discipline. These forces collide not with thunder, but with deep stillness, guiding those ready to rise beyond old limits. Throughout this journey, I will share lesser-known teachings carried through Shaolin tradition, insights rarely mentioned, yet central to profound transformation. You will hear about inner gates that open only through presence, breath patterns that shift mental states in seconds, and ancient principles revealing how divine movement begins inside the body long before it echoes into the outer world. Stay with me until the final word, as the last teaching brings every lesson together, a key many seekers overlook during spiritual transition. Missing that key keeps a person cycling through old patterns. Receiving it changes an entire path. You stand at a threshold tonight. Step through with awareness. I am Shi Heng Yi, and I welcome you to Shaolin Soulfire. Join our circle by subscribing and progress with a community walking the path of self-mastery and awakened purpose. There is a moment in every seeker's path when strength is no longer measured by muscle, but by the steadiness of one's inner world. In Shaolin teaching, this steadiness begins with Gung Fu discipline, a lifelong practice, not a performance. Many think Gung Fu is only physical technique, yet its true meaning is skill gained through time and effort. It is the art of shaping both body and mind through continuous, intentional action. When I first stepped into the monastery courtyard as a young disciple, I expected the great transformations to come from grand techniques. Instead, the masters guided me to the simplest tasks, repeating a single movement until breath and intention fused into one, sweeping the grounds until the mind stopped wandering, holding a still posture until the internal noise dissolved. These small practices were not meant to build perfection, they were meant to build presence. Discipline is the training of attention. When you return to the same breath, the same movement, the same silence each day, you strengthen the inner structure that holds your spirit upright. This structure becomes essential when spiritual pressure rises, when life tests your patience, your clarity, your faith. A mind that has trained to stay centered does not collapse in chaos. It bends, but does not break. And this is where the miracle begins. Divine energy does not enter a mind in disorder. It needs a vessel strong enough to receive it, without spilling, clear enough to hold it without distortion. Discipline is that vessel. Every act of consistency, from your morning breathwork to the way you speak, walk, or respond, creates a channel through which higher guidance can flow. Miracles are not gifted to the undisciplined. They settle into those who have prepared their inner world to carry power with humility, steadiness, and truth. There's a quiet strength that appears the moment you stop running from your own mind. Mindfulness begins here, in the simple act of observing thoughts, emotions, and sensations without trying to change them. No judgment, no resistance, only awareness. It is a practice that sounds gentle, yet it is one of the most demanding forms of inner training. In Shaolin meditation, this awareness is not an escape from life, but a deeper entry into it. Monks learn to remain steady even when the body trembles, even when muscles burn and breath grows heavy. The training is not only physical, it is the cultivation of an inner space untouched by pressure. When the body is challenged, the untrained mind reacts. It panics, tightens, retreats, but the trained mind watches. It notices the discomfort, acknowledges it, and stays unmoved at the center. This is why ancient masters say that meditation is not about emptying the mind, it is about opening it. When you observe without judgment, you learn to see yourself clearly. You notice the patterns you repeat, the impulses that drive you, the emotions that rise and fall like waves. Awareness becomes a form of mastery. You no longer drown in your reactions, you float above them. And in that clarity, something extraordinary happens. The present moment begins to reveal itself. Small signs, subtle guidance, quiet intuition, all the signals you once missed become visible. True miracles do not shout. They arrive in the stillness between thoughts, in the breath you take consciously, in the feeling that rises without explanation and directs your next step. When you are fully present, divine movement becomes unmistakable. The now transforms from an ordinary moment into a doorway. Step through it, and the world inside and around you shifts in ways the restless mind can never perceive. In Shaolin tradition, there is a teaching that says before the mind moves, Qi has already spoken. Qi, the life energy flowing through every breath, every thought, every movement, is the silent language of the body and spirit. It is not mystical in the way many imagine. It is the subtle force that animates focus, vitality, intuition, and the quiet strength beneath every action. For centuries, monks trained to feel this energy directly. They stood in rooted postures until the legs trembled, not to show endurance, but to sense the currents rising within. They breathed slowly until the breath no longer felt separate from the heartbeat. In these moments, the boundary between body and energy became thin, and alignment naturally emerged. When qi flows without obstruction, the mind clears, the emotions settle, and the spirit becomes bright. Alignment is not only a physical state, it is a state of readiness. A person whose energy is scattered cannot receive higher guidance, just as a cup turned sideways cannot hold water. But when qi is centered, steady, and open, something deeper begins to move. Ancient masters often describe divine influence as a higher frequency of qi, a refined current that enters only when the internal channels are prepared. This is where the idea of miracles becomes more than symbolism. A miracle can be understood as a sudden surge of refined energy that collides with your own life force. It awakens dormant strength, dissolves heavy emotions, and redirects your path with surprising clarity. The untrained mind calls it coincidence or fate. The trained spirit recognizes the shift in qi. When your inner energy aligns, divine flow meets you easily. Guidance reaches you without confusion. Insight appears without struggle. And life begins to move with a rhythm that feels both powerful and effortless, as if a greater current has finally found its way into your center. In Shaolin teaching, the true warrior is never defined by strength of body alone. The real battleground lies within, in the shifting shadows of fear, doubt, and unresolved memory. A warrior learns to enter this inner territory without flinching, because mastery begins where avoidance ends. The monks often say that confronting the outer world is easy compared to meeting the truths hidden in one's own heart. There is a story told to young disciples. A novice, afraid of the dark, was instructed to meditate each night in an abandoned hall where a single candle flickered. At first, the shadows on the walls terrified him. His breath tightened, his mind raced, and every sound felt like a threat. But night after night, as he sat with the same fear, something shifted. The shadows remained the same, yet the way he perceived them changed. He realized the darkness never attacked him, it only reflected what he carried inside. Once he understood this, the fear dissolved like mist. Personal mastery follows the same path. You face your anger, your guilt, your past failures, not to punish yourself, but to illuminate them. When you bring awareness to these hidden corners, they lose their power to control you. The warrior's courage is not loud or dramatic. It is quiet persistence. It is the willingness to sit with discomfort, to see the truth without distortion, and to rise each time the mind tries to retreat. This inner work becomes essential when miracles approach. A miracle is a surge of higher energy, and such energy reveals everything. The light you've cultivated and the shadows you've ignored. Only a courageous heart can receive this without collapsing. The chosen ones are those who have trained themselves to walk into their own darkness, to understand it and to transform it into strength. In this transformation, the miracle finds its foundation. In Shaolin tradition, compassion is not a soft ideal, but a disciplined expression of strength. Monks learn early that true power is measured by how gently it can be used. Even the most skilled practitioner is reminded that every technique, every movement, every breath must be guided by a mind that values life. To defend the weak, to act with restraint, to speak with kindness, these are forms of training as important as physical practice. There is an old teaching that says, a warrior without compassion is merely a weapon. This is why Shaolin disciples spend years learning to soften the ego. When the ego dominates, everything becomes a competition. Every situation feels like a threat. Every person a rival, every moment an opportunity to prove something. But when the ego loosens, space opens, you begin to see others as mirrors, not enemies. Their struggles become familiar, their pain recognizable, their humanity shared. Self-mastery deepens through this understanding. The more command you have over your own impulses, the more capable you become of serving others without expectation. Compassion is not pity, it is clarity. It is seeing suffering and choosing to act in a way that brings ease, not noise. This service becomes a spiritual practice, not because it earns divine favor, but because it aligns your inner world with a higher order. In times of great spiritual movement, compassion becomes even more essential. One of the final miracles is not an event in the sky, but a transformation in the heart, a collective awakening where chosen ones use their wisdom, balance, and discipline to uplift others. They become anchors of calm in chaos, reminders of humanity in moments of division, and guides for those who have forgotten their own strength. Such service does not diminish the self, it reveals the self at its highest form. In the quiet rhythm of Shaolin life, simplicity is not a style, it is a discipline. Monks live with little, a robe, a bowl, a sleeping mat, and a few tools for practice. Their days follow a predictable pattern, free from unnecessary noise. This minimalism is not forced, it is chosen. By removing what is excessive, they protect what is essential. In this space, distractions fall away, and the mind becomes clear enough to hear the subtle movements within. Letting go begins with the external world. Fewer possessions mean fewer attachments, fewer worries, fewer stories the mind must constantly maintain. But the deeper practice happens inside. Letting go of material things is only the first layer. The greater release is letting go of mental clutter. The old conversations replaying in the mind, the assumptions built from fear, the expectations that create endless pressure. These inner burdens weigh more heavily than any physical object. Shaolin wisdom teaches that clarity arrives only when the mind is not crowded. When you clear the inner room, divine influence can enter freely. Insights rise without being tangled in doubt. Intuition speaks without being drowned in noise. In this openness, guidance becomes natural, not forced, not sought, simply received. This is why simplicity itself can feel like a miracle. When the heart becomes light, when the mind becomes spacious, something shifts in the entire being. Decisions become easier. Emotions move more smoothly. The spirit feels grounded yet free. Many wait for miracles to descend from above, but often the true shift comes from letting go of what was never needed. Inner simplicity is the quiet gateway through which higher energy travels. When all unnecessary layers fall away, the divine meets a soul uncluttered, receptive, and ready to transform. In Shaolin practice, breath is treated as both teacher and companion. Long before movements are learned or techniques refined, disciples are taught to listen to the breath, its rhythm, its depth, its pauses. The masters say that breath is the first form of training, because it is the only practice that remains with you from the moment of birth until the final moment of life. Everything else can be taken away. Breath is the one constant that cannot be separated from the self. In meditation, breath becomes the anchor. When the mind wanders into memory or anticipation, the breath gently calls it back to the present. Slow inhalation draws awareness inward. Steady exhalation releases tension from the body. Through sustained practice, breathing becomes more than a physical function, it becomes a method of centering. The heart softens, the nervous system relaxes and the mind quiets enough to reveal its deeper layers. In martial training, breath guides power. A focused exhale sharpens a strike. A timed inhale stabilizes the stance. But beyond technique, breath teaches a sacred lesson. When you control your breathing, you control your state. The body follows the breath, the mind follows the body. A single calm breath in a moment of fear can dissolve panic. A deep breath in a moment of anger can return clarity. This is mastery in its simplest form. When the breath becomes conscious, it transforms into a bridge, a pathway between the ordinary world and the subtle realms of intuition, insight, and spiritual presence. Many people seek signs or manifestations outside themselves, yet the doorway often opens from within. With each mindful breath, you align your inner rhythm with a higher rhythm. You attune your energy to something finer, something that moves through silence and awareness. In these moments, the miraculous becomes accessible. The breath carries you from restlessness to clarity, from separation to connection. It is the quiet thread linking the human to the divine. There is a subtle strength in letting go that many mistake for weakness. In Shaolin philosophy, non-attachment is a central practice, not clinging to outcomes, identities, or rigid beliefs. The mind that grips too tightly becomes tense and limited. The body that resists change becomes rigid and brittle. True freedom emerges when we loosen our hold and allow life to flow through its natural course. Non-attachment does not mean indifference. It means presence without interference, awareness without obsession. Surrender is often misunderstood in the same way. To surrender is not to give up nor to relinquish effort. It is an act of trust. Trust in a higher order. Trust in the wisdom of the universe. Trust in the path that unfolds beyond our limited perception. Shaolin masters teach that surrender requires courage. It requires facing uncertainty with steadiness and moving forward even when the outcome cannot be controlled. This is not passivity, it is alignment with forces greater than the self, and it transforms every step into a conscious practice. The miraculous cannot be forced. A mind clenched with expectation blocks the currents of divine energy. A heart that clings to certainty cannot receive the subtle signs that guide transformation. But when non-attachment and surrender become natural, the inner space clears. Energy flows unimpeded. Insight arrives unexpectedly. Doors open that were invisible to the grasping mind. Ancient masters would often say, "The river does not struggle to reach the sea. It moves with inevitability." So too does divine energy move through those who surrender, unobstructed, precise, and transformative. When we release the need to control, miracles do not merely appear as events, they manifest as shifts in perception, clarity in decision, and a deep resonance with life itself. In surrender, the human and the divine move as one, and the ordinary becomes extraordinary. The path of the seeker is never finished. In Shaolin tradition, self-inquiry is a daily practice, a quiet turning of the gaze inward. Questions like "Who am I? What do I truly seek? What is my purpose?" are not rhetorical, they are tools, chisels shaping the spirit. The answers are never static. Each layer of understanding reveals another, deeper, subtler layer waiting to be explored. Monks practice this through disciplined routines that appear simple on the surface but demand constant awareness. Every movement, every breath, every repetition is a chance to observe the self, the impulses, the resistance, the unconscious habits that shape thought and action. To train the body without training the mind is incomplete. To meditate without reflecting on choices and motives is incomplete. Self-mastery is the integration of both, a lifelong process that unfolds gradually, sometimes imperceptibly, sometimes in sudden clarity. The chosen ones are those who do not settle for comfort or complacency. They recognize that resting in familiarity keeps the spirit narrow and the mind untested. They welcome questions that challenge assumptions, that stir discomfort, that push boundaries. They refine their awareness, sharpen their discernment, and align their actions with principles that extend beyond immediate desire or recognition. Each inquiry is an exercise in courage. To look honestly at one's weaknesses, biases, and limitations requires a heart willing to endure discomfort. Yet it is this discomfort that becomes the forge of transformation. With persistent self-examination, inner clarity strengthens, choices become wiser, energy more focused, and the capacity to act in alignment with a higher purpose expands. In this continuous journey, growth is measured not by external milestones, but by the depth of awareness cultivated, the courage to confront the self, and the commitment to evolve. The chosen ones are never finished. They are always becoming, always learning, always refining. True mastery arises when the threads of practice weave into a single living tapestry. Discipline, mindfulness, breath, surrender, service. Each of these is powerful alone, yet their deepest effect emerges when they converge. The body becomes steady, the mind calm, the heart open, and the spirit aligned. This is the moment when human effort meets higher guidance, when intention and energy flow together without friction. In Shaolin wisdom, internal cultivation is only the beginning. A monk may achieve remarkable stillness in meditation or perfect form in practice, yet the lesson is incomplete if it does not manifest in daily life. Mastery translates into action, in the way one moves through the world, responds to challenge, and touches the lives of others. Each step, each breath, each interaction becomes a reflection of inner harmony. The small, ordinary moments become the stage for extraordinary presence. The 7 final miracles are not distant spectacles. They are subtle awakenings in consciousness. They appear as courage in facing fear, clarity in moments of confusion, compassion where impatience once reigned, and grace in action that once was clumsy or reactive. Each miracle is a meeting point where divine energy enters the structured, disciplined, and aware human vessel. When the internal and external merge, life itself becomes a living miracle. Every decision, every word, every gesture aligned with purpose. Ancient masters often said that the ordinary is the highest practice when performed with awareness. By integrating these principles into daily existence, the chosen ones experience miracles not as random events, but as continuous guidance. The divine moves through the human frame with ease, shaping a life of balance, wisdom, and fluid purpose. In this integration, the miraculous is not a rare occurrence. It is the natural unfolding of a life fully awake. To live as a chosen one is to move through the world with quiet strength. Humility anchors the spirit, so power does not become arrogance. Wisdom guides every action, so choices are measured and deliberate. Compassion flows naturally, not as an obligation but as an extension of the inner balance cultivated through discipline and reflection. Strength is not loud or forceful. It is steady, patient, and deeply rooted in presence. This way of being is not a fleeting moment of blessing. It is not a single event that marks the soul as special. True chosenness is continuous, an ongoing practice of alignment with higher principles. It is shown in the attention given to small gestures, the patience held in difficult encounters, the courage to act rightly when the path is unclear. Each day presents opportunities to embody this state, moments where the mundane meets the extraordinary, where ordinary actions carry divine resonance. The chosen ones maintain this alignment through concrete practices, repeated consistently. It may be as simple as a mindful breath before responding in frustration, a quiet act of kindness to someone overlooked, a moment of reflection to correct a misstep. These small practices, performed daily, create a subtle but unbreakable structure within the mind and heart. Over time, they shape perception, refine energy, and prepare the spirit to receive and sustain miraculous shifts. Living as a miracle is an invitation to embody awareness in every movement. It is a reminder that divine energy does not strike once and vanish. It flows steadily through those who remain open, disciplined, and compassionate. By cultivating presence, aligning the heart, and acting with conscious intention, each day becomes a stage where the sacred manifests naturally. In this way, chosenness is not inherited or granted. It is lived, moment by moment, breath by breath, as a continuous journey of awakening and purpose. As we reflect on this journey, remember that being a chosen one is not about luck or destiny. It is about the conscious decision to live with discipline, mindfulness, and compassion every day. By embracing practices like Shaolin discipline, conscious breathing, non-attachment, and self-inquiry, you create alignment within yourself, a harmony of mind, body, and spirit that allows divine energy to flow freely. On November 19, 2025, the 7 final miracles are not simply events to witness, but opportunities for inner transformation. They invite you to become a vessel of courage, purpose, and love, to move through life with awareness, patience, and a heart open to both giving and receiving. True miracles happen not in spectacle, but in the quiet strength of your own growth and the grace with which you live each moment. Take these teachings into your daily life. Start with small practices. A mindful breath, a gentle act of kindness, a moment of reflection. Over time, these simple actions build the foundation for profound change. The path of awakening is continuous, but every step brings you closer to living as a humble, aware, and empowered being. Thank you for joining this journey today. May your heart remain steady, your mind clear, and your spirit open to the miracles that unfold within and around you. If this message resonates, join our growing community by liking this video and subscribing to Shaolin Soulfire, where we explore the wisdom of the ancients and the path of self-mastery together.